Okay, this lesson is going to talk about trend lines or lines of best fit. Our essential question for today is up here at the top. It says, how do you draw a trend line and write a line of best fit? Or how do you write the equation of a trend line? Please make sure you take the time to write down your essential question. I have some notes here. First of all, let's talk about what a trend line is, or a line of best fit. It's simply a line that goes through the data to best describe it. It's a line that we use to make predictions about the data. Okay, so just like we're making conclusions, not everything will fit right on the line, but everything's pretty close to it. It's kind of like making assumptions about things. When we draw a trend line, let's look at these notes right here. It says you want the line to go through the middle of the data, and you want as many of the points on the line as possible. And let's say that a lot of the points won't fit on the line, or they aren't on it. So you want to make sure that you have an equal amount of points above the line as below it. So let's look at these two graphs. This one is showing a positive trend. This one is showing a negative trend or association. So I'm just going to draw a couple of lines, and I'm going to with pencil, and then I'm going to draw the best line with a different color. So what I want you to see is if I drew the line right here, that's great. I have a bunch of points on the line, but I don't have an equal amount above and below it. So that's really not a good trend line. If I drew it maybe like that, that's not too bad, but I've got 1, 2, 3 below it, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 above it. So I'm going to erase those so we can see a little bit better. And so when I draw my trend line, I'm really going to try to go through the middle of my data. So I would probably draw it about like that. So I have 1, 2, maybe 3 above it, and I've got maybe 4 below it. I could maybe slope this down just a little bit, maybe to make it a little bit better. But that would be a good trend line. Okay, looking at the next example. This is going to be a negative slope. This one's a little bit easier and harder at the same time because the points are all really close together. And so I'm going to try really hard. This is why it's good to use pencil, so that you can erase your trend line if you're not happy with it. So our trend line would look about like that. And then we can use that to make predictions as our graph continues on. And so we're going to do that. So when you see a scatter plot and it asks you to predict, like for example in this first example, time spent studying, it might want you to predict at 90 minutes, which is going to be further out. And so you have to be able to use that trend line to help extend your graph. Now let's talk about how to write the equation for the trend line or line of best fit. We're going to visit this again later, but I want to review how to find slope and y-intercept and write our equation. So here's an example of a scatter plot where the trend line is already drawn. The first thing you have to do is you have to find the slope. Well, remember that we've learned that we can find slope from a graph by drawing a right triangle. So what I would want you to do is pick 2 exact points on the graph. So there's several. And remember, you can use any 2 points. And we're going to draw our right triangle. Okay. Now one thing that you need to make sure you pay attention to is, do you see that your scale is counting by 2s? So here, this looks like a rise of 1, but it's actually a rise of 2. And the x-axis is also counting by 2. So this is actually 2, 4. And so then when we write our slope, we write height over base, or rise over run. So it's 2 over 4, or 1/2. And this is a 1/2. This is a positive slope, and so it's positive 1/2. The next thing we need to find out is our y-intercept. Remember, the y-intercept is where the graph crosses the y-axis. And we're going to estimate this. We're going to assume that that is pointing to about 3. Remember, we use the letter B to represent a y-intercept. And then we need to write our equation in slope-intercept form. Remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. And so all I have to do now is fill in my slope and fill in my y-intercept. And so it would be y equals 1/2 x plus 3. Okay?